Amazing. We'll look at every time around to find a way, lasting solutions to the problems that bedevils our society. And we've been looking at the aspect of some concepts that seem great to us in the legal profession. Of course, looking at legal concepts, and that's not what we are far from. On to this episode, we're looking at jungle justice, and that happens to be the part 2 series of the topic we treated last 2 weeks or a fortnight ago. And we're going to be looking at how it impinges or how it concerns those who govern, those who are seen as government functionaries. Don't forget that we treated lastly issues surrounding the citizenry, those who are being governed, and how jungle justice applies to them. But this is a troubling reality we're going to be looking at. Sometimes it seems to the minds or viewers that the government of the day or government functionaries seem to keep a blind eye from the fact that they are not directly or indirectly involved in jungle justice against the citizens, or are they just feeling being complicit, or is it an act of complicity, or are they just thinking that they are not involved, whereas they are holding the torch that lights the fire? Well, discussing this with me and how it impinges on the government functionaries, I have a very, very sound legal practitioner with me who has always been around to look at the nitty-gritty about these shady areas and how to bring, to the spotlight clarity in all of this. And Emmanuel Bakbolo, big thanks for joining.
Pretty good afternoon to Nigerians. Good afternoon, Philip.
All right. My name is Philip Omogupo in the first place. I'm not losing that. So let's quickly hit the ground running, looking at the aspect of jungle justice. I know we had an overview of it last time, but let's have a refresh and how jungle justice, is directly or indirectly involving government functionaries. I mean, how they can be perpetrators, maybe unknown to them.
Okay, for the sake of the viewers and for their benefits, let me start by defining what jungle justice is. Jungle justice is an act or an omission carried out by a person or persons, as the case may be, or by a government institution or functionaries, or by the government itself on another without due process of the law. That is jungle justice. Now, when we look at the extant constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, it does provide in section 33 right to life, meaning it guarantees right to life, however, not without limitations. But the constitution itself does provide the limitations to that right. So right to life is sacrosanct and must be not just observed, also obeyed. Then you look at section 34, also encapsulates right to dignity of human person. Then section 36 does provide for right to fair hearing, meaning when a person is said to be guilty, said to have committed an offense, the person is only but a mere suspect. The person has right to be heard. That's what the constitution does guarantee. Now, we've seen in this our climes situation where government agencies, government institutions, government functionaries does involve in jungle justice. For instance, the policy of President Tinubu, Ahmed Bola Tinubu, on Nigerian just now is jungle justice. A policy that has visited hardship, a policy that has visited penury, a policy that has put the people into a state of disarray, and we are now seeing everything in the country nose diving. That, to my mind, is jungle justice. More so, we have seen in successive administration, like under former President Olusegun Matthew Akikiola Obasanjo, we did saw the military invention of Odi in Bayelsa State and Zaki Biam in Benue State, where the military boys with their khaki and gun invaded these two communities and raided the community, all on the guise that a military man was done harm. Yes, nobody would, in his right senses, would support a situation where a civilian would inflict injury or pains on a military man or military men. However, where that is done, I think the law does provide for a leeway out. Get the person arrested, charge the person to court, and let the person be tried. But in a situation where the military boys, in their thousands, in their hundreds, now will now invade that community, all on the guise of carrying out vengeance or what was melted on a particular military personnel. To my mind, that is Jungle justice. So,
Okay.
jungle justice we have seen in this time is also carried out by the government of the day on the people of Nigeria.
Thank you. Well, if we are to put our satellite on what you just said, not quite long, as regards how the government of the day perpetrates this, you made mention of the Tinubu's administration. Well, you suffice me to say that you didn't make mention of a particular policy that you feel entangles the citizens. But if I'm to search my mind critically, I believe you're talking about the fair subsidy removal.
Not just that.
Okay, but
The floating of the naira.
all right, but it behoves the government to look at policies that can help to ameliorate the plight of Nigerians. So when the policies are not ameliorating their plight, then do you term that as an act of jungle justice?
Obviously, absolutely. It is jungle justice.
Okay, but if we are to look at the, look at it critically, jungle justice has to do with extrajudicial killings or violence against citizens without due legal process. So if the laws have it that the president has discretionary powers to, set up some policies or embark on some executive orders that will rejig the economy or that will rejig the polity in order to have, a better perspective, how is that jungle justice?
Policy is not law. And the law, in the wisdom of the law does not give room to harsh policies. Section 14, subsection 2, paragraph A of the extant constitution does provide that the primary function of government is to give people security and welfare. And in a situation where you now melt hardship on the people, does that amount to welfare?
Well, that sounds
To
political.
my mind, it is jungle justice.
That sounds political. Just in case you're watching, as Law and You and is brought to you courtesy of Noah Attorney, is a firm of legal practitioner based in Benin City, Nigeria. And we have numbers right on the screen, how it pinches or it bites you. Come on, react on these numbers, and basically that could also help us to pound out a new topic on that. Let's look at the agencies or the agents or the institutions of government which falls under the executive, for instance. The law enforcement agents, a situation where, they embark on going or bypassing the laws, bypassing the due process that they should follow as law enforcement agents to torture citizens or suspects. Do you term that as an act of jungle justice?
It is.
There.
Yes. We witnessed one this week in Edo State where the EFCC invaded a particular area. One is not saying that what those persons or those young men are engaged in is right, is
Are you talking
legal.
about, in quote, the Yahoo boys?
Yes, one is not saying that is right, but that guerrilla manner of invasion,
Breaking into
to my mind, is jungle justice. You cannot, at 1 a.m., you invade a community and all on the guys that you want to get arrest or you want to arrest some Yahoo boys in quotes now.
Eventually they have a search warrant.
Whether or not they have a search warrant, well, a search warrant is not a license to perpetrate injustice.
And they mustn't come in the night.
Yeah, a search warrant must state the time for you to go and carry out that activity. So if at the time we subject their activity to the rudiments of the law, you discover that they will find one thing. However, what we are saying is this, that government agencies must learn how to do things in consonance with the law.
Yeah.
Because the citizens too are in observation. The citizens too are in practice. We are all observing and we also want to practice the way they do it. So by the time government agency carries out injustice on a citizen, what do you think would happen to fellow citizen carrying out an injustice on another? So we want a situation where the constitution, the laws, will not be flagrantly disobeyed, just as we have seen government agencies carried out. The police, a young man, 16 years old, who went for his WAEC examination, on his way back from the exams, he was shot, and somebody is claiming that it was an accidental discharge. What degree of recklessness and injustice that has been carried out on that person? So I can term that to be what? Jungle justice. So the government institutions must do the right thing at the right time and when appropriate.
Well, it is quite an harrowing experience when you recount the story or the narrative of the, in quote, Yahoo Boys saga, that had a challenge where the law enforcement agents had to break in, even from the rooftop, breaking through walls, doors, just to get in, and even at the middle of the night. Well, I don't understand the law that really fashions that out, but I think this is all about to bring some remedy, to the basbos that we see in our society. So in what way can we criminalize government functionaries or law enforcement agents caught in this web of menace?
Yes, we can criminalize their activities when they do not follow the law stricto sensu, when the application of the law is not observed and is not obeyed.
Who brings that up?
The government agencies ought to be the example.
Who brings that up? Because as we speak,
We can.
some of the members of the society or the citizens who they tag as Yahoo Boys are still in detention.
Yes, they are.
So, do you see that as how can they ameliorate the plight in such cases? Because we have to follow due process if at all things have to be done well, properly. Because at the end of the day, we find out that even to a huge extent, none of these cases are caught up in the law court.
Unfortunately, the
As if
citizens.
there seems to be a back door through which they are released
No,
after extracting some, financial gains.
The situation is this. Unfortunately, the citizens are people who are scared of government agencies. They are scared with any toga of government. But in other crimes, you see citizens take government to court, take government agencies to court. And we only see the functionality of the court or of judiciary during an election petition matters. That is when you see somebody who the court declares to be the winner will come and tell every Tom, Dick and Harry that judiciary is the last hope of the people. Which people? Judiciary is the last hope of him because he is the beneficiary. So I think that the people, the citizens, should learn how to challenge some of the activities of the government, some of the activities of government functionaries, some of the activities of government agencies, some of the activities of government institutions. But when we are docile, as we are just now, then things will keep trumping the way they are. Because for this nation to be better, as we call ourselves, Giant of Africa, for we to be Giant of Africa indeed, then we must ready to face everything squarely. Begin to tell the government, look, this is the position of the law. This is we should apply civility in anything we do. And if we are really practicing democracy, I think there is need for a turnaround.
Oh, well, let's look at the roles that some bodies can play. I believe that in the judiciary, we could have the role of the NBA, for instance. They can look into all of this and cry foul when there is issues surrounding this, like a hula baloo. And of course, let's also look at the legislative role, not the one that we are having now, where some set of senators will now have to say, well, the citizens want some fresh air, or they should be allowed to breathe. If you want them to be allowed to breathe, the eyes have it.
Unfortunate.
That's quite unfortunate and shameful. But let's look at how the lawmakers, let's look at how civil society organizations, let's look at how the judiciary, through the NBA, for instance, can help to mitigate this gap or can help to ameliorate this set of menace of jungle justice being perpetrated to the citizens by those who govern.
Well, NBA as an association, I have not come to see or to witness or to experience where NBA take up matters. I have not come to see that because NBA is an association. But I've witnessed where lawyers, private practitioners, take up matters.
Or bodies under the judiciary, like Sarah.
No, there's a difference between judiciary and NBA. NBA is an association of lawyers, while judiciary is the third arm of government.
Okay, I'm looking at a body of lawyers.
Yeah, the body of lawyers we have just now is the Nigerian Bar Association. You get it? But maybe until that matter is brought to their notice, this is a country where everybody pretends. Even when we see something getting bad, everybody pretends. The doctrine of egocentrism has eaten deep into us. It has eaten deep into the fabric of this nation. So you hear somebody will say, quote now, waiting concern me. It concerns you. Because, like Nasu will say, an injury done to one is an injury done to all. If an injury is done to a citizen, that injury is also done to me. But unfortunately, we have a situation where nobody cares. And that is why even the purportedly claim association that fights for the rights of citizens must now fight with the zest of what do I stand to benefit. So that doctrine of what do I stand to benefit is another calamity that has befell us. And that's why you see the tsunami of jungle justice carried out every second. For the fact that we are here just now, Philip, does not mean that jungle justice is not meted out somebody somewhere. It is done. But who wants to speak for the voiceless? Who wants to render his voice to the voiceless? Who want to be the only voice in the wilderness? Well, I think we need a voice in the wilderness, because just now we have the wilderness of jungle justice in Nigeria.
Well, if we go by what you are saying, we are all victims as members of the masses. We are all victims as those who are being governed of jungle justice being perpetrated by the government or government functionaries. Could that be correct to say?
Absolutely.
Okay, well, that's a version that we are holding here, but that is subject to more critical analysis. But let's look at how the judiciary itself can be perpetrators of jungle justice, because it's not enough, to point at the executive. Let's look at the judiciary. A situation where justice is delayed. Do you see it as an act of jungle justice?
Yes. I see it as an act of jungle justice. Not just that, where the laws, the facts that are before the courts is not well evaluated, even where they are well properly evaluated, but the principles of law that governs or regulates that fact is not followed stricto sensu, and justice is seen to be delayed. One, justice is seen not to be given. Two, justice is seen to be bought. Because it's unfortunate that we find ourselves in this climate where everything that rules Nigeria today is the principles of money. You can see somebody who everybody knows is a crook, but because he has money, everybody keeps silent, and he becomes the only voice. When he speaks, even the trees bow to him. So unfortunately, most matters that has to do with the melting of jungle justice are not followed to the end. You even see the victim will now say, let's settle out of court settlement. But what about the sanction? What about the punishment? What about the example that is to be set with that person? Why won't you follow that matter to the end? Will not take a dive of settlement out of court. It's unfortunate.
Well, quite unfortunate. This just shows that it's not only the citizens or those who are governed could be tagged as being involved in jungle justice, but rather those who govern also are involved in this act. And most especially when we look at the brutal mob-led executions that seem to tag, those who are governed as perpetrators of jungle justice, without looking at the fact that even government functionaries usually also hold the torch that lights the fire, like I said in my opening earlier. And how do we criticize this, or how do we ameliorate the plight of the citizens who seem to be victims, you and I, who seem to be victims of this challenge? Well, this program is brought to you courtesy of Noah Attorneys, a firm of legal practitioners based in Benin City, Nigeria. I am Philip Omo-Gyupo, and I still enjoy the presence of Emmanuel Obakpolo, a legal practitioner. But as we tell this to an end, a lot of issues come to mind. I think we've not done justice to one of the questions I raised as regards how can we hold the legislators, the National Assembly, for instance, the Senate President, for instance, that seem to have made mockery of the governed. Well, I beg to say that, but I think how do we make them accountable, for the challenges that have been faced by the citizenry?
Yes, it's unfortunate that we have a rigid constitution, and these persons who are in power, who swim in the ocean of corruption, begin to see themselves as demigod, emperors, and tyrants to Nigerians. And that is the singular reason why they take advantage of the provisions of the Constitution. Now, the Constitution provides for what is called recall. Now, and that recall, there are bureaucratic processes to be followed. So, because of that process, you begin to see them, and they've amassed a lot of wealth. They now use it. Even those persons who are victims, direct victims, who ought to say, okay, let us go through this process of recall, it cannot work. You begin to see a lot of display of arrogance and timidity from the other side. So recall is one of the process. Then the other one is at the end of every tenure, the people can choose not to allow them to go. But unfortunately, we have the almighty INEC who is there to do their biddings. Maybe like the pledge, the national pledge, the last verse of the national pledge did say, so help me God. Maybe God will help us one day.
Or can't individuals sponsor bills to tackle this?
Who will sponsor it? When you sponsor, it can't be your name. You must take it to those lawmakers, and if they are there,
they will say the eyes
those men who are there to sing on a mandate we shall stand. What mandate? Is that those men you will go to give law to make? It's unfortunate.
Most especially when the eyes have it or the nays have it, can negate that which the people are really looking out for.
It's a process where we see the Fourth Assembly, this rubber stamp National Assembly, has used to victimize Nigeria. And that is why I did tell you from the outset of this program that even government functionaries carry out jungle justice on the people.
Well, we just served you the way it is, and it's Law and You brought to you courtesy of Noah Attorneys, a firm of legal practitioners based in Benin City, Nigeria. We'll come your way again same time next week. I am Philip Omo Gyupong. Bye for now.